Clint Eastwood leans back in his chair, the studio lights reflecting off his steely gaze. He's been here before. Interviews, press junkets, the whole charade. But this time, something feels off. The liberal host, sitting across from him, smirks, the kind of smirk that says he's got something planned. The audience, stacked with people who'd never watch an Eastwood film in their life, chuckles on cue. Clint doesn't react. He's seen this game played 1,000 times. But the second the host leans forward and asks, "Clint, don't you think it's problematic that your wife is so much younger than you? Some might call that a power imbalance." The tension in the room thickens. A murmur rolls through the crowd, half amused, half eager to see how the legend responds. Clint doesn't flinch. He lets the words hang in the air, lets the moment stretch. The host shifts in his seat, expecting a defensive response, maybe even embarrassment. But Clint Eastwood? Embarrassed? Not a chance. Instead, he exhales, slow and measured, his weathered hands folding together. The audience leans in. They know something's coming. And when Clint finally speaks, his words slice through the air like a bullet. Before we get into today's story, let us know where you're watching from in the comments. Now, let's get started. The network had planned this for weeks. Clint Eastwood wasn't just a guest. He was a target. The producers, the executives, and the host himself all knew exactly what they were doing. It wasn't about his new film or his decades-long legacy in Hollywood. No, they wanted something else. A viral moment. A soundbite they could twist. A headline screaming, "Outdated conservative icon exposed." They stacked the audience with young, progressive viewers. People who saw Eastwood not as a legend, but as a relic. The laughter signs were prepped, the earpieces buzzing with cues. The host, a smarmy, fast-talking media darling, had been briefed on how to corner him. If Eastwood got defensive, they'd paint him as angry and out of touch. If he stayed silent, they'd say he was weak. But if he fought back, perfect. That's what they wanted. Conflict, controversy, clicks. Backstage, producers whispered, "Push him on the wife. Make it about power, about gender." They didn't care about the truth. They wanted to make Eastwood squirm. They wanted to make an 80-year-old Hollywood giant justify his personal life to a crowd that had already decided he was wrong. And as the cameras rolled and the host smiled like a snake, sizing up its prey, the ambush began. The host leans in, his grin widening as he senses the perfect moment to strike. "Clint, let's be honest here," he says, his voice oozing with faux politeness. "You've had a legendary career. No one's denying that. But in today's world, a lot of people see, well, certain things differently. Like, say, relationships with a significant age gap. Some would argue that a man your age marrying a much younger woman is a little inappropriate, even manipulative." He tilts his head, pretending to ponder his own words. But the trap is already set. The audience chuckles, the forced kind of laughter that comes not from humor, but from expectation. They're waiting for Eastwood to squirm, to stumble. The host continues, pressing the moment. "I mean, Clint, if you weren't rich, powerful, and famous, do you really think she'd be with you?" Another wave of laughter rolls through the audience, louder this time. Clint exhales slowly, his face unreadable. He's been through enough battles to know what this is, a cheap ambush, the kind where they don't want a real conversation, just a clip that can be shared out of context. He starts to speak, but the host cuts him off. "Now don't get me wrong," he says, raising his hands as if to feign fairness. I'm sure there's love there, but you have to admit, there's a bit of a, let's say, transactional nature when an older, powerful man is with a much younger woman. Isn't that just an extension of outdated gender dynamics? The audience murmurs, a few people nodding in agreement. A camera pans to a young woman in the crowd who smirks and whispers something to the person next to her. The host sees it too and jumps on the moment. Look, even the younger generation watching right now, they get it. They see these things differently. Don't you think it's time we evolved past these kinds of relationships? Clint finally opens his mouth to respond, but once again, the host bulldozes over him. I mean, think about it. What message does it send? That men can just keep getting older and dating younger? That women have an expiration date? Surely you, as someone who's been in Hollywood for decades, can acknowledge that's a problematic message. This time, the audience erupts with applause. It's clear whose side they've been coached to take. Clint stays still, his expression giving away nothing. But the heat in the room is undeniable. The host senses victory and leans back, arms crossed smugly. Or hey, maybe I'm wrong? Maybe you think there's nothing weird at all about a massive age gap in a relationship. Maybe it's totally normal, totally healthy, but Clint, come on, do you really expect us to believe that? A low chuckle ripples through the crowd. The trap has been sprung, the stage set. The host has everything he needs for a headline. Now all he needs is for Clint to take the bait. Clint Eastwood finally shifts in his chair. It's the first real movement he's made since the attack began. He lets the moment breathe, lets the smugness in the host's face settle, lets the audience bask in their premature victory. Then, in a voice calm as a desert breeze, he speaks. You know, Clint says, his eyes locked on the host, like a gunslinger eyeing a man who just reached for his holster. It's funny how people like you preach about progress, about respect, about letting people live their lives until it's someone you don't like. Then, all that talk about freedom goes out the window. The room shifts. The host wasn't expecting that. He expected excuses, maybe frustration, but not this. Calm, controlled, and razor sharp. Clint leans forward now, resting his forearms on the table, his voice steady. See, I've spent my life doing two things, minding my own business and standing up to people who think they have the right to tell others how to live. You think my wife and I care what some TV host or a room full of strangers think about our relationship? I've been alive long enough to know that the loudest critics are usually the ones with the most skeletons in their closet. The audience murmurs. The host shifts uncomfortably. He forces a chuckle, but it's thinner now, weaker. Oh, come on, Clint, he says, but there's no real weight to his words. Clint doesn't let him off the hook. You want to talk about power imbalances? Clint continues. Let's talk about how a network stacks an audience, feeds a host pre-written gotcha questions, and then calls it a conversation. Let's talk about how a man with a microphone and a control room full of producers thinks he's got the right to corner his guests, twist their words, and humiliate them for views. A few people in the audience clap, just a few at first. The host's smile twitches. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. He was supposed to control the narrative. But now the audience isn't laughing anymore. They're listening. Some are even nodding. Clint tilts his head. You want to sit there and lecture me about relationships? Let me ask you something. He gestures toward the host with an easy flick of his hand. How long have you been married? The host blinks. Well, I'm not married. Clint nods. Ah, I see. Ever been married? The host hesitates. No, but Clint cuts him off. So you're sitting here unmarried, with no experience in a long-term relationship, telling me, a man who's had a full life, built a family, and loved deeply how relationships work? He leans back. Fascinating. The audience erupts. Laughter, applause, real this time, not canned, not coerced. The host's face tightens, his polished confidence starting to crack. Now, Clint continues, his voice low, steady, undeniable. If my wife wanted money, she could have married a billionaire. If she wanted fame, she could have married an A-list celebrity. But she chose me. Not because of what's in my bank account, but because of what's in my character. And that's something you'll never understand from behind that desk, reading lines someone else wrote for you. The host stiffens. Oh, come on, Clint. Let's not pretend like... Like what? Clint interrupts, his voice cutting through the studio. Like I need your approval? Like I owe you an explanation? Let me make something clear. You and I don't live in the same world. I built my name with my own hands. I wasn't handed a show, wasn't given a team of writers to hide behind. I've earned everything I have, and I don't apologize for it. The audience is fully on his side now. The host scrambles, desperate to regain control. Look, I was just asking the questions people want to know. No, Clint corrects him. You were looking for a headline, and the irony is you just made one, but not the one you wanted. The camera operator, sensing the moment, zooms in on the host's face. He's flustered, exposed. He stammers, searching for a lifeline, but there's nothing left. Because Clint Eastwood just stole the show. Within minutes of the interview airing, the internet erupts. Clips of Clint Eastwood's masterful takedown flood social media, spreading like wildfire. The moment he leaned in and dismantled the host's entire argument with just a few well-placed words is replayed, remixed, and analyzed frame by frame. Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, every platform is ablaze. The hashtags start trending almost immediately. Number Eastwood destroys, number Clint unfiltered, number Checkmate Media. One clip, titled, Clint Eastwood ends this host's career in 60 seconds, racks up millions of views within hours. Reaction videos pop up left and right, with commentators breaking down the exchange like it's a legendary boxing match. This, one viral post reads, is how you handle a loaded question. Absolute masterclass. But the biggest blow isn't just the memes. It's the shift in public sentiment. The host, once seen as a sharp, no-nonsense media figure, is now a joke. People dig up old interviews, finding a pattern of his smug interruptions and condescending tone. One clip resurfaces from a few years ago where he tried to pull the same stunt with another guest. And suddenly, people are putting the pieces together. Then comes the fallout from the sponsors. The network, already feeling the pressure from the backlash, scrambles as advertisers start pulling out. A major car brand, one of the show's top sponsors, issues a statement. We do not support or endorse any media that promotes biased, ambush-style journalism. Effective immediately, we are suspending our partnership. Other brands follow suit. Within 48 hours, at least 3 major advertisers quietly cut ties. The network executives are in crisis mode. Meanwhile, Clint Eastwood remains silent. No need to respond. The internet is doing the work for him. His fans celebrate, while even people who didn't consider themselves supporters find themselves respecting the way he handled the situation. A viral post on X, formerly Twitter, sums it up. You don't have to agree with Clint Eastwood on everything to respect how he just dismantled a biased media hit job in real time. That was art. Public figures and celebrities start chiming in. A well-known podcast host tweets, "This is why legacy media is dying. They wanted a gotcha moment and got buried instead." A famous actor posts a clip with the caption, "Classic Eastwood." The man doesn't flinch. Even politicians get involved, some praising Clint for standing up to media bias, others taking the opportunity to push their own agendas. But the most devastating moment for the host comes when an insider leaks an email exchange between producers. The emails reveal that the segment was always designed as an ambush. One line stands out. "Push him on the age gap thing. Make it uncomfortable. We need a viral moment." The internet erupts all over again. Now it's not just about Clint Eastwood, it's about the credibility of the entire show. By the end of the week, the network is in full damage control mode. They issue a lukewarm statement about journalistic integrity and respectful discourse. But it only makes things worse. Nobody is buying it. The host, once the confident and untouchable figure behind the desk, is now reduced to defending himself online, replying to comments and insisting that he was just asking tough questions. But the internet isn't having it. The consensus is clear. He picked a fight with the wrong man, and he lost. As the media storm intensifies, Clint Eastwood remains characteristically silent until his legal team makes a move that no one saw coming. A high-profile attorney, known for taking on major defamation cases, announces that Eastwood is officially suing the network for malicious intent and defamation of character. The lawsuit isn't just about one interview, it's about a systematic effort to tarnish his reputation through deceptive editing, misleading narratives, and a premeditated ambush designed to publicly humiliate him. The lawsuit sends shockwaves through the industry. Within hours of the announcement, legal analysts on major networks scramble to dissect the case. This isn't just a celebrity lashing out. One commentator explains, this is a carefully constructed legal argument with receipts. If the leaked emails are true, this network could be in serious trouble. And then, the real damage starts. A whistleblower, an anonymous producer from the show, steps forward with damning evidence. In an exclusive interview with an independent journalist, the producer details how segments are deliberately engineered to create viral controversy. He confirms that Eastwood was specifically targeted, with showrunners instructing the host to push the age gap angle with his wife, cut him off whenever he tried to respond, and manufacture a host wins moment through aggressive editing in post-production. Then comes the biggest bombshell. The producer shares a trove of internal emails and Slack messages, revealing that the network knew Eastwood's team had asked for an even-handed discussion, but they planned to ignore it. One email from a senior producer reads, "Eastwood's fans are old school and stubborn. They'll be outraged no matter what, so let's give them something to be mad about. If we control the edits, we control the story. Don't let him get the upper hand." The leak is devastating. Within hours, multiple journalists publish exposés on the network's behind-the-scenes manipulation tactics. Suddenly, Clint Eastwood isn't just a wronged guest. He's the face of a much bigger fight against media corruption. More insiders start speaking out. A former editor from the same network admits that hosts have kill phrases designed to shut down guests they don't like. A former producer from another controversial episode confirms that audience reactions, gasps, laughter, murmurs are sometimes added in post-production to make moments seem more dramatic than they actually were. The network, now in full crisis mode, issues a statement claiming that the messages were taken out of context. But the damage is done. The lawsuit gains traction, with legal analysts saying the case for intentional reputational harm is strong. If Eastwood wins, the payout could be massive, not just in financial damages, but in credibility loss for the entire network. And then comes the final crushing blow. Another media company, one of the network's biggest rivals, announces an in-depth documentary exposing media manipulation in the digital age. The teaser trailer drops with the headline, "What They Don't Want You to Know, the Truth Behind Viral TV Moments." And the face of the trailer? Clint Eastwood. The moment that was supposed to humiliate him has turned into a defining moment of his career. Instead of being silenced, he has become a symbol of standing against a rigged system. As the lawsuit moves forward, the network is left scrambling, its credibility in tatters. The host, once smug and untouchable, is now being investigated for other controversial interviews because if he tried to frame Eastwood, who else did he do it to? The power shift is undeniable. The trap that was meant to destroy Clint Eastwood has instead destroyed the very people who set it. The fallout is swift and brutal. The network, already bleeding credibility and scrambling to contain the damage, faces an avalanche of pressure from advertisers, viewers, and even its own employees. Ratings plummet as audiences tune out in disgust, unwilling to support a show that has been exposed for its manipulative tactics. Major sponsors publicly distance themselves, issuing carefully worded statements about journalistic integrity and responsible reporting. Then, the final nail in the coffin. The network is forced to cancel the show. After weeks of mounting controversy and financial losses, executives have no choice but to cut their losses. The official statement spins it as a programming decision. But everyone knows the truth. The host's credibility is shattered, and keeping the show alive is now a liability. As the network tries to shift blame, new lawsuits start rolling in. Former guests come forward, claiming they were similarly misrepresented, ambushed, or selectively edited to fit the network's agenda. It's no longer just about Clint Eastwood. It's about a corrupt system finally being exposed. Legal analysts predict that the network will be paying out settlements for years to come. Meanwhile, Eastwood's lawsuit gains traction. In a shocking turn, he wins a massive settlement, with the network quietly agreeing to pay a hefty sum rather than face a drawn-out public trial. But for Eastwood, the money was never the point. It was about the principle. He donates a significant portion to causes supporting independent journalism, fueling a movement for media transparency. And Clint Eastwood, he emerges stronger than ever. While the network crumbles under its own weight, he becomes a symbol of defiance against mainstream media's deceitful tactics. His already legendary status is elevated even further. Invitations flood in from high-profile figures wanting to hear his perspective, and he turns down most of them, choosing, instead, to make one powerful appearance on a respected, neutral platform. In that interview, when asked how it feels to have taken down one of the most influential talk shows on television, Eastwood leans back, gives that signature squint, and says, "I didn't take them down. They did that to themselves." The clip goes viral instantly, racking up millions of views. The internet, once divided, is now united in agreement. Clint Eastwood didn't just win the battle, he ended an era of scripted media ambushes. As the dust settles, the public discourse shifts. People start questioning everything they see on television. More whistleblowers come forward across different networks, and independent media rises as audiences seek out real conversations instead of manufactured conflicts. The cancellation of the show is just the beginning. Other media outlets start re-evaluating their own practices, fearful of being the next to fall. And so, the lesson is clear. They thought they could manipulate the narrative. They thought they could trap Clint Eastwood in a corner. They thought they could control the truth. They were wrong. And if this video opened your eyes or made you rethink everything, don't stop here. Share it now and see how many people are ready for the truth.